From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher, their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher, and our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered, soon-to-be millionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with us, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes and Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes and Training Podcast. I'm going to be one of the hosts for this episode, and my name is Bill. Who else is hosting?
I'm Vicky.
I'm Jennifer.
You are, and we did it. We're back on our streak. We got one down, so that's good. So we have guests. We have another podcast coming on. Hopefully, we will not lose total control like when Race Bar comes on, but we're going to try. So they have a podcast. It's called Shifting Points. They tend to approach things like we do, only much better, but they come at it from the autocross side of the world. We come at it from the endurance racing side of the world, but we enjoy their side. Maybe they might enjoy our side. Who knows? We're going to try to talk them into it later. We have Kathy, Jess, and Audra from the Shifting Points podcast. Welcome aboard, ladies.
Thank you. Hello.
Thank you.
For those of you keeping score at home, I am the only male on this, which means by default, I am wrong. And I will not be talking very much for the rest of the podcast. So now that we have our ground rules taken care of. So, ladies, I do a very poor job of it introducing people. I tend to like everybody to introduce themselves a little better. Maybe you guys could get into a little bit about your family life, personal life, professional life, racing life, whatever you want. And then we'll get into it a little bit deeper. Who would like to go first? Since Audra is not on mute, she gets to go first.
Oh, I didn't know that was a rule.
I was going to nominate her anyway.
That was like a 1, 2, 3, not it with the mute button.
Yep.
You know?
Everybody take a step forward and walk backwards, right? Yep.
You know, that's actually how I wound up organizing events for the Boston BMW autocrosses. Whenever everybody stepped back except for me, I was still standing there, idiot.
You left your mute off.
It happens. You left your mute off. You're stuck.
I left the mute off, yep. So I'm a contract negotiator for medical devices by day, and then, part-time podcaster, and I do a bunch of autocross. I drive an M2 currently, and I've been doing that autocross for about 14 years. I think this is my 15th season upcoming.
Wow. I think we've got 14 races now. Pretty close. What about you, Jess? You look like you're dying to answer this.
Oh, yeah. So I am Jess. I, like Audra, we started together. I've been autocrossing for 14 years. I started autocrossing a Mini Cooper, and then just for the past few years, my Mini, it's old now. It's got over 200,000 miles on. It's about 14 years old, so it's tired. So that is a retired car, although I still have it. And I'm racing my 2016 Miata ND and having a great time with that. That one's currently stock. The Miata was very heavily modified. The Mini was very heavily modified. And when I'm not podcasting during the day, I do computer training with LinkedIn Learning. We used to be called lynda.com. So I teach people how to use Outlook and Google and PowerPoint and things like that.
Wow. That sounds like so much fun. Kathy, I hate to break this to you, but you're the only one left. So
I know the weird podcaster who talks a lot in person and is reticent to do so on a podcast, but
we'll get you out of it.
I by day project manager / consultant, by night crafter and other things. I'm also big into hiking. I talk about hiking a lot, and somehow how it relates to autocross on our podcast. And I got into it the same way I got my car, which is I blame Jess. It's all Jess's fault. She had the Mini. We drove to St. Louis and back in her Mini. I loved it. I didn't get one right away, but I eventually ended up with one. And then she was at autocross and said, come see me. And of course, once you jump in a car with somebody, you're hooked, and that's it. And that's exactly what happened. I got hooked. So I'm the newbie on our podcast. They've been doing it for years and years. And I only ended up, this would have been my 4th year
Right.
autocrossing if it hadn't been for COVID. So,
Well, Jen's the newbie in our team. She has one less race than we do. So, she came to the first one as an observer, and then she said, "Hey, could I do that?" And we said, "Well, it couldn't be any worse than what we're doing. So come on in." So,
No, that's not true. You guys did great the first time. I made it worse.
nope, not your fault.
Okay.
So let's see. We've got an M2. We've got an M240i that Jennifer drives. We've got a Mini, which we've got a John Cooper Works Mini, which I drive, and then there's ND Miata, which we have. Kathy, do we have your car too? Oh, you've got a Mini too.
I
so.
do have
Yeah,
a Mini. I
so
didn't
we're
say
all, I think-
explicitly, but yeah, I have a
like-
Mini.
We've got we're all twinsies.
That's right. So we could actually have podcast on podcast violence at an autocross contest and see who really wins,
Good.
which will be you. But that's okay.
I have a question real quick. How did you ladies meet?
I met Audra through a Mini Cooper club. So when I first bought my Mini, I didn't need a Mini at all. We were buying my husband a car. And then I just saw this Mini tucked in the back, and I had always wanted one. So, I was like, at that point, I was like, I had a car that ran great, that was all paid off. But I was like, oh, I'm going to, what bills can I unload to get this car and make it happen? So we did a very irresponsible thing. We bought 2 cars in one day. He needed one.
Awesome.
My husband needed one. I didn't need mine, but it ended up changing my life. So the car dealer said, just this total off the cuff remark. He said, oh, these Mini Coopers are fun. The car has like a subculture and you can swap parts and it's really easy to do. So I went Googling for how to do that. Actually, back then, I don't even think it was Google. It was probably like Yahoo at that point. And
CompuServe.
right.
You've got mail.
So I found this car club, a Mini Cooper club in Massachusetts. At that point, I think it was called Ocean State Minis. And we used to gather around and it was so fun. We would just have, good old fashioned tech days where we would all just sort of meet and swap parts and talk about cars. And me and Audra just clicked right away. We just had a lot of fun. We enjoyed seeing it was almost like, oh, what did you do to your car? How do I do that too? Oh, where did you get that? So it was almost like I think to this day, like our Minis had the exact same mods in them after.
They both wound up very highly modified.
Very highly modified.
Which wound up being a really bad thing for us to start autocross. We didn't know it at the time. We were just having fun.
Yeah.
Buying things, shopping. It was better than shoes.
It was.
Wow.
It was not cheaper, but it was better.
And then in a very different kind of tech day.
Yes.
Right. Jess and I met through tech conferences. We were both speakers at conferences. And so we met there. And then
we didn't even know each other very well. And we decided to drive halfway across the country to speak together at a conference in my Mini.
Have you always done Minis or were there other cars that you used for autocross?
For me personally, it was just the Mini until I got the Miata.
Oh, okay.
And
I've had a
I'm too
new
new,
string of
so.
cars.
Yeah,
Kathy's
Audra's had
still
all the
Mini.
cars for autocross.
I started with a Mini. I had a Volkswagen GTI. I had an M3. I had a Miata, and now I'm on the M2.
Okay.
We have like symmetry on our cars, but okay.
So do you ladies work on your own cars, or you just grab the parts and then have a guy that or a shop that put them all together?
So for me, I'll jump in first because I'm probably the easiest. Mine is my daily driver. So I don't do a lot to it. Actually, just this year might be the first mod besides it's cuter looking and tires that I've done. And I definitely took it to a garage and had them do it.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Well, I would love to learn all that kind of stuff. But number one, I have just a car park spot. I don't have a garage. I also have very nosy old neighbors.
Oh, they'll just pull out a lawn chair and just come out and watch you.
Well, I did have one elderly gentleman, as I was fixing a light fixture on my porch, come across and go, "Do you have the right tool for that?" And I still to this day wonder exactly what he meant by that.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah.
So I don't do any of my own stuff. I would love to, maybe someday, not right now.
We'll have a post-COVID hangar party at our place.
Yes.
Sure.
I do what I can until I think it's going to get a little too ugly. So I'll try anything. A few things I've noped out of and, took it to a professional. I also have a neighbor down the street who's awesome, very good with cars, and he has an inside garage. And I've been bringing it over because, I was saying I want to learn how to do all these things, so I brought it over to his house. We put in the exhaust. He's like, I'm not going to do anything. You're going to do everything. He's like, I can help you, and he was great about it. So it's been great to learn. I can do things, but I'm not the nice thing about minis, and it makes you not afraid to just like kind of rip stuff out, see what happens, So I've done that a few times with the like dashboards and the radios, things like that. It's fun.
Lego-ish. That's what I'm finding with the Miata. It's just like a Lego.
Yeah, it really is. And a lot of the times you find like, I haven't in a while, but build computers and put them back together. And the cars they're remarkably similar. Like they look overwhelming at first, but really there's like only one port that particular cord is going to fit into. So, it's been fun.
You can find anything on YouTube. Yeah, that's
I
the small
tiled my
things that
floor using YouTube. You can find you're absolutely right. Anything.
Really obscure things that you're like, nobody else is going to do this. Like I have my random 2006 Mini Cooper, and I needed to know how to, I'm trying to restore it because it's so old. It was, not looking so pretty. So I found a YouTube video on how to take the windshield wipers off to paint them and put them back on again. And this one needed a particular video because it's not like unscrewing it and taking it off. It was a matter of, there were things you had to do, and there it was.
And I'll say the older the car, the better. If you're looking for a YouTube video, right? Like when I got my 2016 Mini Cooper in 2016, there was no video for anything because nobody's doing anything to their car. And now I looked for something and I was like, oh, someone's finally done a video on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've gotten to the situation, when it came to the YouTube, is that Bill had gotten an Apple TV, like a Sling TV at the hangar now. So we can just throw everything up on the wall and go, okay, this is what we're doing, guys. So we don't have to pass around the phone, so we can see how we're going to be working on these cars.
Well, and I see 5 out of 6 of us are wearing glasses. So that's important.
Yeah.
On a teeny tiny phone. It's
Yeah,
really hard
right.
to watch a YouTube
It's funny
video.
that you say that because I'm on a big screen. It's so funny that you say that because I literally just got my first pair of reading glasses ever 2 days ago.
So
yeah.
Kathy, you mentioned that you were you've been doing it the least amount of time, right? So how long have you been doing it?
So this would have been or 2020 would have been my 4th year. So I really only got 3 years of autocross in. I've had a lifetime of driving fast and maybe slightly reckless, but but doing autocross, I have only done it for a few years. So.
And what about you, Audra? How long have you been doing it?
This will be my 15th season coming up.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's impressive. And Jess, what about you?
Same. If it was able to go to one event last year just due to COVID, and then that was it. But hopefully we can get back. So this will be my 15th also.
That's pretty
missing
impressive.
it terribly right around this time, like January. Like your pedal foot gets.
95 looks pretty inviting these days, right?
Mm-hmm. So, what series are you currently racing in? I mean, just in general, is there a circuit that you're part of, or you just kind of sign up online for your autocrosses?
For our local, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say for our local clubs, it's really most of them are posted on Motorsport Reg, and you would just sign up there. So it's not really a series. I don't do any like SCCA national events or anything like that, where you would really need to look at, signing up early and things of that nature. Locally, we have this airstrip. It's a retired Army base, and there's a bunch of, I think there's like 10 clubs that run there, and you can pretty much run with all of them.
Which Audra does. Audra, right? You race with at least a couple of clubs.
Most of them.
Yeah, because I'm like, again, newbie and, have 2 kids and a billion other things going on. I have only run with BMW's club. And actually my intention for 2020 was to at least push myself to run with another club at least once. So it'll have to be a 2021 goal, I guess, now.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have that, to have an airport runway, where some people just have parking lots. We can get a good, 80-second course.
Wow.
That you can really break out the speed on because we have that runway.
That's awesome.
And you don't have to worry about running into a lamp pole or anything in the
Right.
curb in the
Very safe.
in your course.
Yeah, my first autocross was at I still call it Giant Stadium in New Jersey, and one of the people got lost, and I'm standing in what should have been safe right next to a light pole, and they're 2 feet away from me going bat out of hell. I'm like, the course is like 80 feet that way, guys. But anyway, not the best plan. So I believe you guys have done autocross for sure. Have you done any other types of racing yet?
Not racing. I've done a track day, and that's about it.
Oh yeah, no, we use racing just to driving fast for fun. So
We actually had one on the calendar, me and Kathy, based on the recommendations of a guest, Tedward, that we had on once. He convinced us. We were signed up the very next day after we had talked with him on this podcast, and then COVID hit, so we had to cancel that. But we are fully on board to do track day.
Oh, that'd be great. It'd be quite fun. You guys will have a really good time. It's different, but always good. Is there any other goals or dreams that you guys want to get into and bucket light them? Hey, I always wanted time trials.
Cool.
Yeah, we keep hearing about time trials.
Yeah.
So
it fits your autocross background very nicely.
Yeah. So with the autocross, I thought time trials were the standard. I mean, how are you guys racing the autocross? Is it just training and practice, or are you guys actually competing in it?
It depends on the club. I mean, there's different levels of competition. Some of them, it's just that day, and they hand out awards at the end of the day. For Boston BMW, that the 3 of us all autocross with, it's an annual competition. So you have to have so many points events, and then you place within, that category. And at the end of the season, that's when, awards are handed out.
Mm-hmm.
I think Vicky got lost in the jargon. She's not the best at our automotive sport yet. So time trials.
I'm still working on the language.
That's right. So time trials is different from autocross. Time trials would be typically not wheel to wheel, but on a track. And autocross would be not typically on a track, but also a time trial of sorts. I think that's where you got lost.
Yeah, because I remember going to the autocross and having the counter there and competing.
It's a time trial of sorts.
It is. Yep, it's definitely a time trial event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're just not on a track,
but not an official time trial event.
Yeah,
it's a time trial event, but not an official time. But it's still a time trial.
We care about
you're competing based on your time and the number of cones that you hit.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in racing, numbers are hard, and in our podcast, words are hard. So we're absolutely screwed, but that's okay.
Right.
And then I think maybe not participating, but certainly, especially as fellow podcasters, we would like to go to more events of different kinds. Right. Mm-hmm. So like we just had an episode where we had some folks that do lemons a lot. And, while I have zero interest and zero car ability for that, I would love to go and experience it and see it and, that kind of thing.
It is funny though, because you bringing up the time trials and how there is a thing called time trials, but autocross is a time trial. I remember I had the same confusion when I found out about club racing, because to me, SCCA is a car club and we were racing.
I mean, it's in the name.
Apparently is a sport called club racing, that it is entirely its own sport. So yeah.
So ladies, where are you currently racing at? I mean, normally what area?
State.
Oh, yeah. Massachusetts.
Oh, everything Center, Massachusetts. Now with that, do you guys share a particular car, or do you guys bring your own cars to it? I know you guys were talking about, yes, you do daily drivers, but if you happen to actually go into like a heavy competition, do you have a car built for that, or you just use your own, you just bring them?
It depends on, sorry, for us individually, I mean, my M2 is dedicated for autocross. I haven't really put a lot of mods into it though. I don't feel like he really needs it. My Mini was highly modified. I did a bunch of things to my Miata. But it's not my daily driver, right? So that was okay. I have rented seats in other people's cars. I co-drove with a friend who had a BRZ for a season. I've co-driven with some Porsche friends, things of that nature. And it's, kind of pay as you go, or the generosity of your buddies that you get a seat in some of these other cars.
Sure.
And there's definitely a mix, right? So there's me, who's there in my stock, unmodified daily driver. And then there's people who show up in a car that they trailered in because it's not street legal and it's modified for autocross. So there's everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Vicky's tied to our little paradigm of endurance racing and sometimes, track day events and stuff. So we haven't actually gone to an autocross. We've only gone to Evo school a few times. So that's what she knows about autocross so far.
Yeah. There's plenty of daily drivers there too, right? Like, so autocross is, I think, much more than endurance racing for sure, but is much more of a, if you can drive it and it won't tip over, you can autocross it.
Yeah,
right?
and
So
you can also bring a friend and have them race against you in your own car. I mean, it's really fun. Autocross is almost more like racing drivers than it is racing cars in many ways.
For sure.
So 2020 stunk. It's a bad year. What do you guys hope for 2021? Do you have anything scheduled, or what are you looking for in 2021?
Oh man, I gotta hope I remember how to do this. I feel like it's been so, like I said, I went to one event, and then Rhode Island was not allowed in Massachusetts anymore because of their COVID positivity rate. So I literally could not attend any events, which was really sad. So part of me hopes that if we can, I'm sure we will be able to do the season again. Audra will speak on that. That I actually remember, oh yeah, I have to drive fast at this thing.
that first test and tune of the year is going to be really important.
I think we might, if we're allowed to, we might have high attendance at that first test and tune. It was a real challenge this past year because we were limited to number of participants too. So we could only have 50 people, which is pretty small for, most of the clubs that run there. So it was a little bit hard to properly staff things, and the rules were just crazy. You couldn't have instructors, so that eliminated having novices. We didn't have any of the normal schools that we, have for any of the clubs. So this is pretty sad. So we're hoping that things will be opened up this year, and we can have more people and actual novice events and things of that nature.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are really looking forward to, or hoping that it's a much better racing season.
Yeah.
But I also think that maybe in 2021, and I know that there's another variant that is coming, but I think that there are protocols that were practiced well in 2020 that may make 2021 a lot easier and open, as opposed to just being scared through 2020, which honestly felt like a decade.
Right.
It was 2020 was the longest decade ever.
Well, yeah, and Audra's talked about this on our show. There were certain things enacted that I hope stay. Right? Like hand sanitizer all over the place. I'm here for it. Let's please definitely keep that. But yeah, hopefully the limits go from 50 back up to, regular numbers. So it can be regular courses that we're used to and all that.
Yeah.
And as for so my goals for 2021, it's hard, right? Because I had my goals for 2020, which you think, okay, well, just shove them off a year. And now those are your goals for this year. But like Jess was saying, I feel like I don't even remember how to autocross. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to be slower than I normally am, even
only for the first 2 laps, or first 2 times out, and then it's going to be all fine.
So it's hard, right? I definitely don't want to just put whatever level for myself that I would have had, I feel like I need to step it back. I still want to push myself to go to maybe, another club or another kind of event or whatever, but it's tough. You can't just move your 2020 goals to 2021. I don't think, for me.
What you need to do is you just go to the event and just apologize to each of the cones ahead of time.
It's funny that you said that. I tend to apologize a lot to everyone for everything. So much so that my trail name when I hike is Sorry. So I'm way ahead of you.
You need just put that on the back of the car in like vinyl. Just put, I'm sorry.
Actually, so my car is a convertible. And I've definitely gone through corners where I took out a lot of cones and I've yelled back, sorry, as I've driven down.
I remember at the bar once after an event when I had taken out, it was the one that I think when my side skirt fell off on the Miata, I like spun and hit so many cones and they had to stop the course while this one poor guy could reset up all the cones. And then in the bar at the end of the event, I had bought the guy a drink and I was like, I'm like, I'm glad I got to see him. I was like, I'm sorry I made you do that. And he was so great about it. He was like, oh, that's all right. And then he paused and then he looked at me and he goes, but I bet it was fun though, right? I guess it was.
So if we succeed in coercing you guys into coming to one of the events, probably in Connecticut or New Hampshire, we will make sure to introduce you to our friends at Sorry for Party, because it seems to be the theme of your podcast is sorry.
So since we're on that topic, ladies, and before we kind of get into the podcast and all this racing, we do this little segment called the good and the bad and the ugly of your racing, and like. It's pretty awesome. So the good is,
You're way overselling it.
The bad, I just want, things on the ugly that just completely went off the rails. Do you have any of those stories? Give you a moment to think about it.
I have a couple of, I've learned that my Mini Cooper was a tank and I never fully appreciated over the years. My Miata is very, very delicate and it's light for a reason. So like the Mini, I'll spin it over the years. Like I said, I've been racing this thing 10 years. The car looks brand new. If it can hit cones like a champ, you would just never know. But the Miata, I've only had that car a few years and already I've had to replace the side skirt. And I still have not fixed the front end, which is completely, it's like all hanging down. It's got pink duct tape on it at this point. And Audra had even said, this was the November autocross. And they said, we would advise you to be careful. You probably want to keep your distance from the cones. They are frozen, very cold. And so they're hard.
I was just going to ask you what kind of cone would rip something off?
The Mini, it would have been fine if I had spun and hit the cones. You would not have even known because apparently that car is a tank. But the Miata, it's just, there's parts just fly off that thing. And I knew it was bad when I knew I had hit some cones. Well, I should say I hit a lot of cones. I definitely knew, but I came into the paddock again and instantly tons of people were swarmed around me and they're like, it's okay. This is really common with Miatas. And I was like, oh no, what happened? So I got out of the car and there was my side skirt just completely off and on the ground.
Oh no.
And then I remember me and Kathy, we Googled it. We looked it up because I didn't know how to get it home. Although it's a convertible, so I just could have had it right in the passenger seat and it just it could have stood up as tall as it needed to. But I got, we figured it out. We got it, we scooted it back on and, got all the clips in place. In the end, I still needed a new one. But so I've had to have some body work done in that car. A lot, more than a lot. So. And
I'm going to ask you a question. What year is your Miata again? Because I kind of have one too.
It's
I just need to know.
16. I got it in 2017 during the winters.
Okay.
I mean, it's great. It's so worth it. And you know what? The front end, it's still duct taped. It's been like that for years. It just doesn't bother me. And at this point, it's how people kind of recognize me. So I'm even hesitant.
It's the girl with the pink duct tape.
Yeah.
It's a ND, so it's more like mine, Vicky.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. How about you, Audra?
Actually, I've had a couple of things. I've been towed off site more times.
Toe of shame, Bill calls it. The toe of shame.
Well, the worst one was when my clutch in the M3 exploded as I was coming through the finish.
Ooh,
So,
that's not good.
and I mean, it exploded. So the pieces got sucked into the dry part of the transmission, and it blew out the solenoid, so it wouldn't even start. So they had everything stopped because I'm in the finish, no one else can come in, and they had to get a truck and tow me with a rope out of the grid. So I was pretty mortified.
Did you
I sold that
drive it
car
there?
soon after. I don't trailer, so had to get a ride home.
Oh,
And there goes my car in the tow truck.
We've been there. Don't worry.
Yeah, we have.
A lot.
we didn't need to talk about
How about you, Kathy?
That, I don't know. I mean, life philosophy, most of my bad or ugly just becomes hilarious. So I might just have good, funny, and funnier. But well, I know one time I came. It wasn't even. I don't think. I mean, I guess it could have. It must have happened on the course, but I didn't notice it until after I had worked my shift. At some point I came out and my car had a flat tire, and that sucked. That was bad. But the good of it was I went to go work my shift and I came back and Audra had worked her magic with other people, and it had been patched for me. So I could at least drive it home. So that was both a good and a bad. And maybe the funniest, even though you didn't ask for funny, but a hilarious run that I had someone in the passenger seat with me. And first of all, music just randomly started playing and it wasn't coming out of my car and I didn't know what was happening and I'm still trying to drive. And then moments later, a bee was flying in my face and caught and it couldn't work its way out of the car, even though it was a convertible with the top down. So yeah, those are my craziest stories, I guess.
Very nice.
Audra will probably remember I actually did have a Mini Cooper. It was a first year production Mini before the one I have now. And that car would always break down if she saw me driving another car. I remember it because we did do this little first gear autocross event at a car dealership. And I decided to drive Audra's car all day. And I left my car in the parking lot and I would wave to it as I went by, driving Audra's car. And then at the end of the day, I got into my car and I drove 10 feet and it's like, boop, the car was like, no. And it just shut off. I think the check engine light came on. It had to be towed. I had to tow it. What was it? Like over 100 miles home. And it was like, it needed a brand new wiring harness. She was very angry with me that day.
The check engine light stands for you cheated on me, right?
Yes, exactly. Very jealous. My new Mini fortunately did not have that problem.
That's awesome. So how did you guys, or I guess why did you start your podcast? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So actually, we had a fourth person who is not continuing with us at this point, but she had approached me a couple of years ago and said, hey, what would you think about doing a podcast? And she asked me and someone else, and the other person declined. And I thought about it literally for a year. And then Jess and I were out of the casino one day drinking. And I said, hey, Jess, someone approached me about it. That's it.
And just around a casino drinking.
Isn't that what you do at the casino?
It would be fun.
Yeah. It sounded like a great idea. And, opposite of what normally happens when we're drinking and have great ideas, this one was actually really good.
Alcohol does that. Or not.
Seems to be the way that most audio podcasts start about racing. So
yeah. So how's your podcast going?
We're still going.
How many episodes? When did you start exactly? Roughly.
We should know that.
Maybe we sat there, we met about it, and it took maybe I think 6 months to kind of get everything together, like who's going to do what and how we were going to.
And we had a lot of, but we have the forgotten episodes, the purposely forgotten episodes.
Yeah,
we
all have those.
Yeah, we thought that drinking and doing a podcast would be great up until we were like slurring our air quotes and. So those episodes will never be shown ever.
It took
unless you pay us enough.
4 episodes, and so we were finally comfortable to have one to publish. Is our first episode.
But we just dropped episode 25. So yeah,
Okay.
so that's where we are now. A few more in the can waiting, but
Yeah. But we
Now
had
you-
fun. It's been so fun.
You guys have a
Yes.
YouTube channel also.
we do. It's very empty and sad and lonely at this moment in time. We have intentions certainly of getting more content on there. Again, a 2020 hope was, to be going to some events and things like that, which didn't happen, but hopefully soon. For me, I don't know, we haven't talked about this. The other two ladies are probably gonna punch me, but it's not, I don't think that's not our focus, right? Our focus is the podcast, and it would be just more for extra fun stuff, little additionals.
Yeah. So one thing we found was we have a few friends and listeners who are hearing impaired or deaf. So we release our podcast on the YouTube channel because it's got the auto subtitles.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Which sometimes makes our podcast even more stupid sounding because you just look at it like I didn't say that, but okay.
Yeah, we're actually we've been discussing about whether to go ahead and kind of actually put our podcast on like we are right now, except we're having like an editing issue with that instead of just going cold and just putting the podcast up. So we've been discussing that also.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
Well, that would be interesting because when we started, we were in person, so we wouldn't have recorded our faces anyway, right? And I think we all hope that we can go back to that at some point. Like Audra basically has a studio at her place, and so we would meet there, or we've recorded episodes in the bar after autocross. But that's a great thought. I wouldn't have thought of that for better accessibility, certainly.
Absolutely.
I do think that at some point we really do hope to get back in person. I think our interaction is much better, and it was a whole lot more fun when we'd have people over and be together. It's different not being on video, right? I almost forget those days at this point.
I cannot wait to go back to doing it in person. Not to mention it's a long hike to get to Audra's house, but I work from home, so I will literally. It's like a 4-hour round trip that I will do on a Wednesday night to do this podcast. Like, I enjoy it so much to do this podcast. See them, see you ladies, have a drink, have some fun, interview some guests, do our podcast, and then go home. It's so great.
Although the benefit of this is we don't have to yell at people to not hit the table while they talk.
Right.
That's okay. I can edit that out. It just takes time.
Takes Audra a lot of time, I would think. She's the poor soul who does all of our editing. So
a lot of animated guests that like to.
I
And
feel
so,
her
so
pain.
please don't do that. Don't make me work any harder than I have to.
Can you share some of the guests that you've had on your podcast or some of the topics that you've covered?
We will, but we won't give you the list and the email addresses. No, I'm kidding.
No worries.
We will.
I'll track them down anyway. Don't worry.
Well, we just had Dawn and Brian Kuehl. It's a father and son team, and they were telling us a lot about time trials. They've done very, very well in the national autocross events. First place finishes. Their car was featured in multiple magazines, things of that nature. And as Jess was saying before, Tedward has gone on with us. He has a huge YouTube channel. A very, very interesting guy. If you haven't watched any of his stuff yet, it's great.
But we have to talk about Kim Sue and who was the other Carter? The Gunthers.
Oh yeah.
We had Kim Sue on, who was a junior Carter SCCA national title winner, solo title winner for karting, and also a guest Bob and his 12-year-old son, who also did karting. And the two of them, they've been honestly like some of my favorite guests we've ever had. They were
people
just
without a driver's license.
Hot tickets. These kids are going places. I was so impressed. They're the best.
It's kind of scary how fast some of those kids are too. Whew. So you guys are, let's see, your first one came out in May of 2019, right at the end of May. And so far, what do you think has gone well, and what have you learned the hard way from podcasting?
Everything to both of those questions.
We agree.
Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely learned a lot. Yeah. I mean, Audra and I were just talking about some of the things last night. You know, I was saying to her, I think some of our unprofessionalism is kind of what makes us interesting, but there's a fine line between just terrible unprofessionalism that's like awful to listen to, and then informalness. That's not a word. Maybe
Yes.
it is. I don't know.
It works for me though.
Unpreparedness versus, yeah.
I mean, I like to be off the cuff, right? So one might call me unprepared.
It's a skill though.
But you have a skill. You can like come up with a question on a finger snap, and it's a good question.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
But
And that's
generally speaking, I think that our interview skills have improved a lot over time. We've definitely learned how to pull information out of people and to keep the conversation going. So I think that's really going well these days.
And some of it's like you got to learn that, like it's something that I had to learn was okay, that if I need to ask a question, I have to be prepared. It's almost, you have to leave yourself a little vulnerable, because if I'm asking a question, it's also an acknowledgement that like, yeah, I don't know this. And that's why I'm asking you. Like when Chang Ho Kim was on, he does tires. He knows everything there is to know about tires. So I was like, this is great. I'm going to use this opportunity to ask about tires that I'm thinking of for my car.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely is. I feel like if you can get past that point of knowing that, yeah, you're going to be vulnerable if you ask a question, but chances are there's other people that are listening to this that also had this question and will be happy that you asked it.
Mm-hmm.
It's also good to have that. So you're putting yourself out there saying, because you're telling everybody, I personally do not know the answer to this question, but that's all right. We're all learning.
See, I always took it as you were trying to help your listener and pretending that you were at the level that they were. And
I'm not pretending.
I really
I learn something new from them every day.
I think that's one of the things we have done well, is that the three of us, have different levels of experience, have different perspectives, right? So I'm frequently the newbie who asks the dumb questions, and I'm fine with that. Like I'm not embarrassed by the fact that I don't know. And I think that's one of the things we do well. And I think we've done well from the start. We've definitely had some equipment changes over the years, especially in person or on site, right? We've really upgraded, or there's no we in that. That's Audra, have really got that down. I feel like we did a cars and coffee, and setup was amazing while I sat there sipping my coffee, Audra and her assistant Greg, I'm joking on the assistant part, but they set it up, and I thought it sounded great and went really well. Those are things probably day one we would have had a lot harder time with.
I've definitely been a learner as I go on the equipment and how to record well so that the sound actually sounds good. We've had a couple of real misses on that. I've had a couple of real misses on that where it sounded just terrible. It was barely something that you could listen to, and we dropped them anyway, which is a little bit embarrassing. But yeah, it's definitely been a huge learning process, just the equipment.
So do you have any plans for your upcoming season on the podcast, or do you have like a dream guest that you'd love to have on other than Bill? No, I'm kidding.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Just harassing you,
We
Bill.
don't really, and especially
No
because
worries.
we don't go for like the superstars, right? That's not who we want to talk to anyway. So it's kind of hard to have, I think, and Audra and Jess may chime in differently, but it's hard to have a dream list, because it's whoever we meet that we just think is interesting and we want to talk to more.
Right.
For me.
Yeah.
It's definitely a focus for us to have the people behind the scenes. We want to talk to the everyday person who's been doing this for 20 years, has never won an award, but shows up every single time, and it's that go-to guy, right? There's the heart and soul of the sport.
Yeah. One thing that we do, I feel like that we do well is we try to make it accessible for everybody. Like if somebody's talking about an acronym, or, they'll say vernacular, like even, okay, well, when we're talking about getting into the grid for autocross,
Or time
we'll kind of
trials.
stop and say like, okay, just for everybody who may not know, the grid is where you go and line up all your cars while you're waiting for your run, things like that. So
Sure.
it's been helpful to remember that there are people listening that don't know what these things mean.
Yep, that was us. That's why we did this. It was, I think the thing that really got us started was there was instructions in the one of the series that we were looking at, and they're like, and we were trying to figure out how to do it, and it says, oh, just do it like you normally would. We're sitting there going, well, we don't know what that means. So anyway, so speaking as fellow podcasters, has anybody recognized you yet, recognized your voice, or known a bit more about you than you were initially comfortable with?
Yeah, I forget all the time that people actually listen to us.
Yeah.
That
Exactly.
it's not just us having a chat. So when people approach me at an autocross or, at the bar afterwards and say, oh, I heard you say blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. People can actually hear me.
Yeah.
That's happened to me before. And then yes. And it is true to remember, like, when, my coworkers are starting to listen, and it's like,
Oh, that's bad.
I gotta like think
Like
about
when
what
I
I'm
told the
saying.
story about someone's car that I detailed, and then I was like, oh God, Audra, can you edit that out? Because they're going to be listening. Yeah, like that.
Yeah, that happens.
Well, and some of my staff started listening too, so I've tried to not swear nearly as much. They don't think I swear.
Oh, you do.
It would be wrong.
No worries.
So, ladies, is there any chance in your future for endurance racing? Even if a free seat was offered to you?
Well, so here's my reservation. I don't know squat about cars. So if there's any expectation, hey, Kathy, here's a wrench, go do the thing, I'm going to be on my phone looking at YouTube videos.
Aren't we all?
No clue. If it's, hey, we've got 4 people and we just need a 5th person for, I don't know, to go get us coffee, I might consider that. That's me. I think Audra and Jess are probably more adventurous than I am. But
Somebody's got to go buy the parts. Somebody's got to go get the pizza. That's my
I can
job.
do those
You can
things.
share with me.
Believe it or not, that is Bill's job.
I almost did endurance. So I found out that I really enjoy karting, indoor karting.
Oof.
And I live very close to Foxwoods, and they had this big indoor karting endurance race. And I was like this close to signing up, but unfortunately I had a previous commitment that date, as it turns out, so I couldn't do it. But I would have loved to try that. And I've done like, I feel like even karting, it's a long time. And it's not even that long. It's like 7 minutes, but it's like, oh my goodness, the mental,
Here's your out.
the mental exhaustion after even that, like, I don't know, it just seems so hard to do endurance racing, and it's something that I would really love to try. So I would like to try it.
You work your way up to it. It's fine. Audra.
I've been in conversations with a couple of other women for a little while about doing lemons. So we'll see if we actually make that come to pass. But yeah, I would love to try it. Except for, the stories we hear about the peeing in the seats. Other than that, it sounds like a good time.
That's a story I haven't heard.
Not in our seats. I see a potential 5-person ladies team on this podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I'll be team photographer.
I can.
That could be a good weekend.
I can be a sous chef and run around and take care of you guys.
I would
Take pictures.
totally be up for that. I've always wanted to do. See, here's my thing. Like, I've always wanted to do things like that. And I remember when I first did autocross, I kind of jumped into it. I won't say alone. I mean, I kind of was alone, and I was really overwhelmed. Didn't know how to start. I would love to do something like lemons or endurance racing. But this time, if I had to do it, I would like to do it with somebody who's already done it. That could say, here, come with me. I will show you what you need to know. Like, I feel like
It's this great
Here,
podcast.
Jess,
too old to try to figure this out on my own now.
come with me. I'll hold your hand. You can
There's
come
this
on
great
with us.
podcast you can learn from people who work their way from nothing to nothing better. Okay.
Mhm.
So I've got a question, and I don't know if you guys thought about this, but I was putting together the outline for this podcast today, and I was thinking, if you guys sponsor our podcast and we sponsor your podcast for the exact same amount, then we're both sponsored podcast and racing teams. I'm just thinking outside the box a little bit.
I think you might be onto something.
I'm thinking.
That thing, like if you give somebody knives, they have to give you a penny so that they weren't a gift because it's bad luck. So like if we each give each other a penny, is that like
That's like the last title of our episode was, so I bought a car for $1 because there had to have been something exchanged.
I don't know. If you give me a penny, I'm feeling like I owe you like 12 DVDs or CDs or something. So we might have to do something, a different denomination. Maybe we could figure it out.
maybe stickers or T-shirts?
We could do that. Somebody had a sticky 0 button on their last sticker order. So instead of ordering 100, there was a little more than that. It came in. So if you need some, let me know. I know a guy. So we couldn't have 3 ladies who know how to do autocross because, like I said, we've only done Evo School a few times, and it's quite fun. So are there any tips and tricks? We're going to get into autocross, so you guys get to be the resident experts because we stink at it. Is there any tips and tricks to starting out? Like, what do you need to do to start autocrossing? Get somebody off the sofa. They have a car. It's not a jacked up 7-foot haul Jeep. It won't fall over. What do they need to do to start?
Sign up.
Yeah. Sign up. You need to get your preliminary, take it to a mechanic or check it yourself to make sure that, the brakes are good. Give it a little test of all your fluids and
I mean, I'm not saying don't do that. I will say that I didn't do that. I had a new car though, so I knew like it was,
if your car's questionable. Like if I was going to take my retired Mini out and autocross it,
yeah,
hell yeah, I'd be taking that to somebody and say, please check the brake lines before I, pack sunscreen.
Sunscreen, yeah.
Yep, pack sunscreen.
So Kathy, you aren't exactly an example of what to do sometimes. I believe there's something that we need to talk about. You just reminded me of.
I know where this is going.
I'd like to introduce you to the concept of torquing your lug nuts. Yes.
He did listen to that
He
episode.
did listen to the podcast. Yeah. Well, I'll have you know, I now have not only 1 torque wrench, but I have 2 because I ordered the wrong kind.
Yes. Inch pounds and foot pounds. Yeah.
Yes.
It happens.
So, well, it wasn't enough for the amount of torque that my car needs. Look at me with the lingo and
That's
learning.
right.
But yeah, no, I'm definitely not a shining example of exactly how you should do things. Although I think I'm a good example of the fact that anybody can do it, right?
Sure.
Honestly, like if I can do it, anyone can do it because you don't have to have a race car. You don't have to do anything to your car other than make sure that it's safe. To get into autocross, you don't have to have any flipping clue what you're doing when you get there. I mean, those things all help, right? They're good things, but it's not necessary. I think people either hear I autocross or God knows I tell them, even though they don't want to know about it. And they picture a very different thing. They picture the track, they picture a sports car, they picture, crazy high speeds and crashing into walls and other cars on the course and all these things. And that's not what autocross is, right? Like like we were saying, ours is in an open, what used to be an airfield. Sometimes people are in great big parking lots and it's set up with orange cones. The course is set up with orange cones. You want to drive grandma slow because you're afraid, you can drive grandma slow and that's fine. Like it's not, in theory, the worst that could happen is you spin out and hit some cones.
Absolutely.
So,
It's like the Tai Chi of auto racing in terms of
Tai
low
Chi.
impact. Well, the nice thing about it is, and we're trying to have, you said like, what do you need to do autocross? And Kathy was like, well, sign up. And the beauty of it is, and that's what makes it so accessible, is it kind of really is that easy. Like, you literally can take whatever car you're driving right now, sign up, and go do autocross, because it's nothing that your car was not already designed to do. And yeah, you may not do spectacular if you're on, street tires, but you'll have a blast. You'll learn about your car. You'll take it to the limits, and you will learn so much. You'll have fun, and you'll still be competing with other people that are, similar like you. It's so easy.
So, what is the basic equipment that you need, and what does a weekend or day of autocross look like?
So it's just a day. We don't usually do.
I think Audra should answer
events.
that one. Just being.
Okay.
There are some that you can go to for our local events. It's usually just one day. I mean, if when you get into like the SCCA, the national competitions, the pro solo events, those are much different than what we're normally doing, and much different than what you would find with your local club. So minimum equipment, I would say, just like Jess said, check to make sure that there are no bubbles on your tires. You should probably have some idea of what you need for tire pressure, but show up and someone will tell you. A helmet, yeah. Well, we usually have loaner helmets. So check with the club to see if they have loaner helmets. And coming as an organizer for, one of the clubs, I would say, check out the websites and read a little bit about the rules. And there's normally, some guidelines about what you can and cannot do on site, what bathroom facilities are available to you. For us, we have porta potties and nothing else. So you need to be prepared for that. And just show up lots of water, sunscreen, and food.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's definitely a list of things. And that's actually, I think, one of our only YouTube videos. I say, like, what's in my box. There's a list of things you can bring that can make your day more comfortable and enjoyable, but they're not required. Do I need to bring sunscreen? No, I don't. Will I be more comfortable if I bring sunscreen? Yes, I will. Do you want a chair for when you have your lunch break? Sure. Do you need one? Of course not. Even knowing your tire pressure is great, but like Audra said, if you showed up and you were like, I don't know, 10 people would happily jump over and help you out and throw gauges at you and say, here you go. Oh, you don't know how to do it? Let me show you. Again, like, other than the helmet, which most clubs loan them, you really don't need. You need a full tank of gas. That's helpful. We didn't mention that.
Gas is useful.
Once you start going,
I shouldn't say
you don't really
full
want to
tank.
fill it up too much, because that's a lot of weight.
That's a lot of
You
weight.
don't want to run out of gas. You don't want to run out of gas.
So we have had that happen, but you're there from about like 7 a.m. until about 4:30 at night. So it's like so you should bring a lot of clothes, because you're outside from like every possible spectrum of the weather that's going to happen that day.
Yeah. So Audra, do you want to take us through the day, because you run the events and you know the day better than anybody?
Well, it depends on the club. I mean, most of the clubs you register online. Some of them you do have to go through a registration process when you arrive. You all have to sign a waiver when you get to the gate. So you sign away your life, and then you come in, you find a paddock spot, literally. Yep. You find a paddock spot, you take every single thing out of your car that can come out of your car. You don't want to have anything jiggling around. And then there's some type of tech inspection. Some clubs tech you in your spot. Sometimes you have to get into a line, but everyone will check out your car to make sure that it is basically safe enough to be out there. They'll shake the wheels and make sure that your brake pedal is working, and check your seat belts. And once that's done, some clubs will allow you to immediately go out and do a course walk. And you can, depending on the club, get a couple of course walks in to get to know what you're facing that day, because it's always different. Always different. There's similar elements, but they're always set up very differently. And then there's usually a driver's meeting, and they'll tell you how the day will go and what you need to do, and you'll get your work assignment. And normally you'll have like 1 or 2 sessions in the morning, you'll have to work. All the clubs you have to work at some point. Usually it's going and shagging some cones, which is kind of fun because you get to see all the cars go by and you get to know that corner very, very well. So when it comes your turn to drive, you at least know how to do that corner.
Yep.
And yeah, that's about it. The end of the day, it's some of the clubs will hand out awards, so you want to find out if they do that. Some of the clubs that I run with, they actually do special things for novices at the end of the day. And that's it. Yeah, then you hopefully, if the bars are open again, which we're all hoping for, we go to the bar.
And hope your car's in one piece.
Yeah. And if you were a novice, I'm assuming most clubs work like ours, and that they have instructors for you in a non-COVID era, right? So that if you show up and you just know nothing, you can typically have an instructor in the car, and they can range from shouting at you, "Brake now, go faster, turn there," to being a little more quiet and laid back, depending on the instructor. But
so is there a club or a few clubs that generally have events in most states? So like if I mean, we all know that most states have them. They're pretty much all the time and everywhere. But say somebody that was just starting out and just Googled autocross near me. I mean, so for anybody just wanting to, like, say if they wanted to do it in 2 weeks or whatever, I mean, how would they go about looking for a club, or what would they?
Exactly as you just said.
Yeah,
we were contemplating moving to Florida at some point, and my criteria was that I had to find a place to autocross first. So I went and Googled, autocross in the area that we were looking at. That's how you find it.
And they all just come up.
There are car clubs that have chapters all across the country, like SCCA and BMW CCA. Those would be good places to start. But there's all these other little clubs that you may not know about that can really only come from a Google search, or like Audra Motorsport Reg, like Audra's.
yeah, Motorsport.
That's another great one because it can find you events within a radius of a zip code that you put in.
Now, I'll say
And there's
anywhere.
things-
Sorry, Audra, go
No,
ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say, and there are things that you'll find on there, like the Evolution Autocross School, that is not, necessarily regionalized, but you'll find it on Motorsport Reg.
Yep.
But you said anywhere in the next 2 weeks, and if you live above a certain, if you're anywhere in the Northeast, Northwest, Michigan, whatever, you're going to make maybe some ice cross in the next 2 weeks, but you're probably not going to find autocross in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'd do the ice cross. That'd be fun.
I don't know. Ice cross sounds pretty fun.
I know ice racing. We've had a couple of guests that love ice racing.
We're trying to get there. That'd be fun.
I feel like that's definitely not one for my daily driver. So
Not for your daily driver. Not unless you don't like your daily driver.
Right.
So autocross is commonly known as the gateway drug of racing.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've lost several people over the years to like track events and bigger track days.
to the meth of
Yeah,
racing.
You definitely see that, but you have some people, they come back after getting addicted to the track. So they start with autocross, they move on to, time trials or track, and then they come back because autocross is a very different beast from what they're finding out there. It's the short, quick game instead of the long game,
Yeah.
And one thing we haven't mentioned about autocross, actually, so for folks who don't know, is it's classed, and it's classed by your car. Jess kind of alluded to it earlier. So it's driver against driver. In other words, I show up in a 800-year-old box. I'm going to be in the same. Sorry, do you guys have cursing on your?
Take care of it.
So I don't know. You show up in a 1980 Honda Accord, you'll be in the same class as other cars that are similar. You're not going to be up against a 2020 Corvette, right?
You come in your Rolls Canardly.
So it is class, and so that's a great thing, right? So I'm not being out purchased by another car. I'm not gonna lose to someone just because they had a more expensive car or whatever. So and I think that's similar to like Lemons and some of the other endurance where there's a cap on your car. Sounds like it's more your ability and what you can mangle together.
See, you guys don't know us well yet, but we'll work on that. But we're more of the and type of racing than the or type of racing. So, anything we can do, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Why only choose one? Miss Vicky, you're on mute. This is why I edit.
I know. It is. So now is the time for the Fast and Furious Storytime questions. I'm sorry. Hold on. My bad. Now's the time for the Storytime, Fast and Furious Storytime questions. So we're going to ask you a couple questions to get to know you guys a little better. They're kind of rapid fire. They're, just kind of go for it, go with it. And Jennifer, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So I always this is my favorite one. So we'll start with Jess. What was your very first car ever?
My very first car ever was a white 1988 Oldsmobile Cutlass Sierra. And I thought it was cool because it had the wheels were like a little sporty, and it was like the sport edition. It was not cool. I splattered the back of it with stickers, and that car kept going until it was, we were dumping water into the radiator, and over almost 300,000 miles. I learned a lot about car maintenance because of that car. We would just be driving, and I would be driving, and it would all of a sudden, on the highway just stall. It would just turn off. And then, that was when I learned that even in an automatic car, okay, while you're coasting, put it into neutral, crank the engine and then put it back into drive. And so I learned a lot about thinking quickly on my feet because of that car.
And what was the worst car you've ever had?
The worst car I ever had it's actually not my car. It was my dad's car. But I have to give it an honorable mention because it was so terrible. And I do believe it won worst car of the year. It was a Thunderbird. Ford Thunderbird. Yep. And it was a 1992 Ford Thunderbird.
Ooh,
that car was
I had one. Yeah, that's bad.
Terrible. Nothing worked. Like the car alarm would just randomly go off when it decided it wanted to go off. It wouldn't, traction wise, it couldn't stay on the road to save its life.
It was a joy in snow, I'll tell you.
Oh, if you if you enjoy snowbanks, if you enjoy being late to show up everywhere because you always coasted into a snowbank.
I was in college and we were trying to get somewhere. So I had 4 of the guys that were in my car. We opened the trunk and they were standing in the trunk trying to get some traction, and the car still wouldn't go straight.
I know, it was bizarre.
Horrible.
Yes.
What about you, Audra? What was your very first car?
Oh, I had a 1990 Geo Storm. I called it the Silver Bullet. It had no air conditioning, and that car taught me to always get air conditioning. You can never actually do without.
Right. And for the record, we haven't had an episode on this, so we have pictures of all of our first cars on.
Oh, really?
Episode, yeah.
So, what was your worst car?
My worst car, I had a 1995 Jeep Cherokee that it would hop. So if you were turning and you hit even a pebble, the whole front end would hop. And
awesome.
I actually, it was great. That car, I hydroplaned on the Mass Pike trying to get to a flight at 4 a.m. in the pouring rain. And it went away soon after. Actually, Jess drove that car. That was also the one where the gas gauge would go just like this. You could watch it just go very quickly to empty.
I remember that car.
What about you, Kathy? Your first car and your worst car?
My first car was a pretty sweet 1986 Honda Accord hatchback in Champagne with the weird black slatted vents on the back window.
Louvers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whatever, those things. But it was great. It was my first car. I was poor, so that was exciting. It was I loved that thing. I, like Jess's, rode it into the ground, and I think every new driver should have a total crap box car, right? So you learn how to change a tire, jump a battery, all those things. You learn all those skills when you have a terrible car like that. It wasn't a terrible car. I loved it, but it was, old. So
Yep.
I really do think you have to have that crappy car to learn.
You do. I'm
That's
forcing that on my daughter right now. So she may not appreciate it, but she will someday.
That's why we race lemons.
Yeah. My worst car, I honestly, I don't think I've had any, really, truly terrible cars. My ex-husband, we had a car at one point. It wasn't an awful car. It was a Jeep Cherokee that just shut off the electrical while you were driving.
You don't need electrical to drive.
Everything just went, and that was it. So that was not great. And then I did have the Volkswagen Jetta that got recalled, which actually wasn't a terrible car, but the whole experience of having the
emissions.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. The emissions thing and dealing with all of that was horrible. It was actually a fine car, but dealing with all that was not fun. It made it on the worst car list that way.
It did. Mm-hmm. So we've stolen something from another podcast. Spike Ferenson's got a podcast, and he refers to it as a taproot car. It's the car or the sound or whatever that got you into cars. So you trace it back. It could be a Hot Wheels car. It could be a model car you put together. It could be a neighbor's car. It could be anything, literally anything. So what would we trace back the endless pit of money that you have dug into racing in cars? What car can we blame for this?
I will start. I will start because mine, when you said, I was like, nothing, there's no car. And then you said Hot Wheels, and it wasn't a Hot Wheel. And this is hilarious to me. I hope you all find it hilarious. When I was a little kid, I had Barbies.
Uh-huh.
Like many a young girl. Barbie had a Jeep.
Yes.
It was a plastic and metal Tonka toy Jeep. You could sit on the back. As a small child, I could sit on the back of her Jeep and hook my fingers into the tire wheel wells and then scoot my feet Fred Flintstone style and drive that thing around. And I'm going to blame that. That's what I'm going to blame.
So it wasn't the pink Barbie Corvette that did this to you.
No. I'm no, definitely not a pink girl. If I could, her Jeep was pink, but if I could have painted it black, that would have been much more my style.
Put some underglow on it, Really.
And you can't sit on the Corvette. See, I could actually sit on the Jeep.
That's true. Audra, that's going to be a tough one to top. You going to blame Barbie too, or?
Well, no, I think I always just wanted to drive. My parents, I do not remember this because I was so young, but we drove, it was 3 or 4 hours to get to some amusement park or something. And when we got there, I hopped in the driver's seat and told my dad that it was my turn to drive. Nice. And when I was young, my goal was to be a truck driver. I think I just always wanted to drive. I didn't get into cars though, really, until I had my Mini. So I'm watching Kathy roll out of her chair.
Yeah, I think we've lost her. I think you broke her. If she wasn't on mute, we couldn't hear anything.
Sorry, that is the piece of information you have ever told me.
Saving that one.
I think we've lost her. She's gone for the rest of the evening. All right. Jess, can you try and give Kathy some time to exhale because she's inhaling all the time?
I'm very similar to Audra in that I've always had a love of driving before cars per se.
Sure.
I just love driving and listening to music, and I always drove back and forth from school, from University of Rhode Island back to Massachusetts, and I just loved it. And then when I finally got the Oldsmobile, when it was time for me to buy my own big girl car after I graduated college, and I went
than an Oldsmobile?
Huh?
Bigger than the Oldsmobile? I mean, where are you going to go? That's up from there.
Like a new car.
Okay.
That way.
Okay.
A car that I actually picked out and decided what I wanted. And like Audra, it was that I nickel and dime myself and picked a car without air conditioning, but it was a Pontiac Sunfire and it was a manual transmission. So I bought myself my first manual transmission car. I think I had one lesson before that, but really loved it, And I'd always grown up playing, pole position. I'm dating myself, but Mario Kart, I'll say that. That was where I got competitive about it. So you know, and
Pole
autocross
position is
was
awesome.
yes, it was. And autocross is just a way to make you feel alive because you're just outside all day with people. You know, there's just so many other ways that you could spend a Saturday or a Sunday, but this way you're outside, you're racing, like it just really makes you feel alive. And I would imagine that about any car.
Like I say about autocross, it's how you want to drive, but you would get in trouble and or hit a tree if you did it on the road that way, right? Where it's that you can drive fast, you can take those curves tight, and you'll hit a cone, not a tree or a person.
Yep.
But yeah, it's out of that same love of driving. Not to finish your sentence for you there, Jess. Sorry, you were.
No, you get it.
So this is a fun question, Jess. What is the one thing no one knows about you that would surprise them?
Oh boy.
Yeah. You ladies can help.
I know.
If she needs prodding.
Can I say nobody knows in the autocross field or nobody knows?
I
Whatever.
mean, like,
It was just something.
just something that's random about you. Like I play a guitar or
Yeah, okay. Well, that's what I was gonna say because
Yeah.
not many people know I sing and play keyboard in a band, and
there you go.
and we just released an album, so maybe not many people who autocross with us.
Well, if all our listeners buy it, you'll have like 3 or 4 sold.
Yes, there you go.
And what is your band name?
We are the Stratones.
What
I'm gonna
what are
say
you?
The Stratones.
The Stratones.
Okay.
How about Kathy?
So yeah, I guess I don't think I've ever talked about this. So I do crafty stuff, including crochet. It's called amigurumi, and they're little teeny tiny cute dolls. But I do like random characters, like all of the characters from Bob's Burgers.
Oh.
Things like that.
That's awesome.
So yeah, and I've actually had on my list, I've been wanting to do a bunch of the Marvel superheroes. I just haven't gotten there yet. So
If you
Now
need,
you're
if you
speaking my
need some,
language.
you got it.
How about you, Audra?
Well, people outside of the car community are generally very, very surprised to find out that I do something with cars. That's usually a huge shocker when people find out that I autocross, you know.
We understand that.
Okay, Jen.
I love when they don't know they're on mute.
Okay, our next question is sorry about that. All right. So what is a family car that sticks out in your mind? Like maybe from your childhood or your uncle's best friend or something.
I'll go first if that's
question.
okay.
Yeah.
My mother's Chevy Cavalier, not that it was particularly fabulous or anything like that, but I just have good stories. One, it had champagne colored cloth seats.
Ooh.
And I may have gone somewhere I shouldn't have. And there may have been a bottle of red wine involved that spilled all over said champagne colored cloth seats. And rather than deal with it, I, in a panic, went to bed and thought, I'll take care of it in the morning. Oh
Yes.
no. And someone had poured a bottle of Diet Coke over it saying, well, you can just say it was Diet Coke. Woke up the next morning and somehow Diet Coke worked like club soda and it was all magically gone.
Oh wow.
Magically.
Note to self.
So nothing could happen.
I was going to say the ostrich method usually doesn't work that well, but I guess it does sometimes. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
It was crazy. And then my other just funny quick story about that one was when that car was the car I needed to take my driver's license test. And like the day of the test, I was parked in the school parking lot and someone smashed the rear taillight. So now I couldn't use this car for a driver's test because it has to be a road inspection passable vehicle. And I had a red plastic binder and I just cut off a square that would fit the rear tail light, and I taped it on there, and I went, and that was good enough. And hilariously, I was in the basement looking for something the other day to show my kid, and I found the folder with the square cut out of it.
I was going to say, if you fixed that with diet soda, I was going to be really impressed here.
Yeah.
What about you, Audra?
Geez, I have nothing to compare to that story, Kathy.
Yeah.
You know, my first thought was like childhood trauma because my parents had one of those giant, like wood paneled station wagons. And
nice.
I had nightmares for years of being in the back of that and floodwater slowly rising on the side of the car. I had these nightmares. It was terrible. I would wake up like the sweat and the panic, and come to find out they really did that. And that's why I had it. So that car drove through these floodwaters, and apparently I was small enough to somehow remember it, but not really remember it.
Oh,
So
wow.
when you said that, I'm like, what do I remember? Oh, I just have this really terrible memory of this car.
Wow.
Luckily, wood floats, so you were fine. Don't worry.
We made it. It's all good. Now that I know that, I haven't had the nightmare since.
How about that? PTSD from the Brady Bunch vehicle, right?
I know, right?
It's not the
Griswold
first time.
family truckster.
Jess, do you have a car? Stands out.
Yeah, we had the same. Well, we had the same car. We had like the Griswold family truckster, that big station wagon. I just remember, two things. One is coming home from the beach in that car, and like, you know, no seat, no air conditioning, obviously, and the plastic seats, so they were so hot. I just remember getting in the car and just burning and like sticking to that car with the plastic seats, and like the seat belt was so hot because it was metal. It would burn your skin. I just remember that with the windows down. And then I remember my dad's car, the first time he got a Buick Regal, and it was like this, and I'm quoting, you can't see it, but like quote unquote luxury car. It was just the first car that we'd ever had that had, obviously it didn't have the bench seats in the front going all the way across. So it was like two separate seats. It was all cloth interior. They were like super cushy. And it was the first car we'd ever had that had the automatic gear shifter in the center console. It wasn't from the, it wasn't the crank from the steering wheel. And it had a tape deck, which was like, whoa. So we all fought over who got to put their tape in to listen to it.
Was it an 8-track or a cassette?
It was cassette.
Okay, very good. We've had both. Okay, ladies, automatic, stick, don't care. Audra, what do you think?
Stick, definitely. Way more fun to drive.
Absolutely. Jess?
Stick.
Okay, very nice. Kathy, you going to go 3 for 3?
It's not even a question. It's
All
got
right.
to be stick. Even my 17-year-old is like, stick all the way. So.
All right, very well. That means you guys are still eligible for coming to a lemons race with us. Very nice.
So here's one. Do your cars have names? I know you have like this personal relationship with your car, but like, does it have a name?
Yes.
Yes.
My cars always have names. Yes. I had the Oldsmobile, which was, it was my very first car in high school. I think we called it the White Girl.
The White Girl car.
White girl.
And then my first Mini was very, it was like light blue with the white mirror and roof, and she looked very like dorky in a saddle shoesy way. So she was Eloise. And then this new car, my new Mini was, it's dark blue and it has black mirrors and a black top, and it was very sexy. So we're like, okay, it needs a, very sexy type name. So we went with Jenna for that one. And then the Miata, I just call it the Beast, just because from the very first time I autocrossed it, I went through my first slalom after like 10 seconds in, and I think I was like, oh my God, this car is a beast. I think I even like exclaimed that, and it's on video, but so that's why it's the Beast. That's my
What about you, Kathy? Did your car have a name?
None of my previous cars had names, but in the Mini world, lots of people name their Minis. And my Mini is Caribbean Aqua, also known as Teal, and I added purple stripes and purple mirror caps. So she's blue and purple, so she's Ariel after the mermaid.
Bill, you have a Mini. Did you name yours?
I did not. The last car I named was my MR2, and it was creatively named Mr. 2, so it wasn't exactly.
I didn't know the Mini Cooper name thing was a name thing.
I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people.
No, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the Jeep thing, you see all the people waving, like, there's a thing with certain cars, Yeah.
Minis wave. We
Yeah,
wave.
we do too.
Audra named her Mini.
Yeah. What is your car's name, Audra?
My cars usually have to earn their name. The Mini did have a name. The current car, the M2, I call him Blue. It's short for Oyster Blue. And I called him that because, BMW always has these obnoxious names for the car colors. And I just couldn't remember what the obnoxious name was for this blue. So it's Oyster Blue, but I call him Blue.
Okay.
I had a car named the Mighty because I drove through a very large snow pile with that car, and it was hilarious. Therefore, it earned its name as the Mighty.
I like it.
It's awesome.
Okay, ladies, I'll start with Kathy. Front wheel? Do you prefer to drive a front wheel, rear wheel, or four wheel, or does it matter?
Well, so I've only driven, I'm checking that this is true in my brain. I've only driven, for autocross, for sure, I've only driven front wheel most of the time, except for one time, Jess and I, on a not points day, we drove each other's cars. And so I drove her rear wheel drive Miata. And the only other time I had driven a rear wheel was a big BMW. So it seemed like my Mini. Anyway, so I got into her car and drove it like I would have driven my Mini.
It's not the same, is it?
And we immediately fishtail, even though I was on a straight part of the car. So, just for experience sake, I would say front wheel, but I'm sure if someone gave me a fantastic rear wheel drive, I'd be totally fine and happy driving it.
I'll fishtail right off into history with it.
Yeah, why not?
How about you, Jess?
So for autocross, rear wheel drive in a heartbeat. It's just so fun. I love it. For snowy, New England driving on the streets, I like my Mini front wheel.
Okay, how about you, Audra?
That's a really tough question to answer because there's so many benefits of both. Like I love with the rear wheel drive that you can kind of get the rear end to swing out so easily, coming around some of these corners, and it just helps you set up for that next turn. But with the front wheel drive, it covers up for so many bad habits. So you just, just beat the heck out of it, and you're like, oh, I'm okay. You can't do that with the rear wheel drive because you will wind up in places that you don't want to be. But there's benefits to both. So I really enjoy both. The only thing I haven't driven is an all-wheel drive on like an autocross course.
Sounds like a goal for the year.
It does sound like a goal.
Well, my daughter's crappy vehicle just happens to be.
It's got to make it all the way through.
So we might get a little chance to try that out, Audra.
That might be fun. That might be the fork that pushes that car right over, though.
No, I shouldn't say she. I'm sorry. My daughter has informed me her car is a he. So.
Okay.
Or no, her car is a she. I don't know. Anyway.
So our next question is what's the car that got away? Do any of you have one that just you really, really wanted or had and just wish you had it back? Or maybe we could have purchased and it just got away?
I had an NA Miata and I completely regret selling that car.
Oh.
Yeah, I really want another one. I don't know. I was feeling overwhelmed at the time. I had too many cars and I sold it, and it's a big regret.
I can see that. Vicky loves her NB. You know what NB stands for, ladies?
No,
not Bill.
Not Bill's. The car is not Bill's.
What about you, Jess? Do you have a car that got away?
I had my first Mini was a 2002 Mini. So it was a first year production, nothing worked. Everything was wrong on it. That was the car I was talking about earlier that was very jealous. I love that car. I love everything about that car. It was my Millennium Falcon, it was the car that, when all the Minis went up to Mount Washington together, it was the car that ruined the picture because it was the one that I had to have the hood up so it could stop overheating, but sadly somebody went through an intersection and just T-boned me and, I walked away from it, but the car got totaled. So I had to say goodbye to that car. But I always miss that car. I loved it.
What about you, Kathy? Do you have one that got away?
I didn't have anything that I owned or anything that got away from me, but I would love, once I pay for college tuitions and such, and it's not even an expensive car, but also once my children aren't taking up a parking spot, I would love a first gen Mini actually, because now mine's a new Mini and they've gotten larger over time, and I would love Jess's first car that she also she had her first Mini, and a sport, because mine's not a sport, so that would be, if I could just pick a car out of thin air, except I'd pick one that was not broken. Or,
we had a second gen S, so it was the turbo instead of supercharged. So we never drove the supercharger though, but we had a good time with that car. It was fun.
Yeah, I'm very jealous of the pops and burbles that the older gens have, right? Mine doesn't sound like that. I have to try to do things to make it sound at all mean. My Mini is definitely, everyone says, it's not cute, it's mean. My Mini's cute. I've just accepted that.
we have a button on our JCW Mini, and you want pops and gurgles, it'll all day long. Obnoxious.
I'll come just listen to it. You can just drive it around.
We'll bring it to you, no problem.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're Garage Heroes in training, and even in spite of the logo, the in training should be in much bigger font than the Garage Heroes part. So we're constantly trying to get a little better, trying to pick one of the multitude of colors that we need to work on. Do you guys have anything that you guys are working on for your driving? It could be a feature like a Chicago box. It could be I want to be able to go around the sweeper, or is maybe that circle that just bothers me, by the way. Anything that you guys want to work on, or something you want to try or work on this for next season, which hopefully will be in a couple weeks, please? Anyone listening?
I can go. I was going to say, I was waiting to see if anybody was going to go. I can go. I really want to work on my launch.
Oh, nice.
And I don't even really know how people practice that. Is that something that you could literally go to a parking lot and practice, or would somebody call the police on me? I don't know. But I would
come to our hangar and use the runway all day.
Yeah, that would be perfect. I would just love to really do better at that and not embarrass myself.
Yes. So sorry, I wasn't implying that you guys weren't answering. I was implying to somebody, please make it so that our season starts in a couple of weeks. Not that you guys weren't answering.
Oh,
Sorry.
yes.
Right.
Yeah, please. Anyone?
Crossed.
Exactly. So
I'll
Audra,
go. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
You're
calling on Audra, but I will go. I like this question, especially because being newer to it than Audra and Jess are. When I think it was my second year, I became very caught up in trying to move up, in the ranking, right? I was second in a class of 3 the first year. So I moved into a bigger class, and I was middle of the pack and whatever. And I wanted to beat my friend Sasha, and I wanted to get better, and I became overly obsessed with that. And to the detriment of it wasn't fun anymore. And I realized that, and I stopped, and I was like, okay, you're not getting better, first of all, and it's not fun. So I said, slalom. I'm going to work this year, and I'm going to get better at the slalom. And I did. And it was the best moment when towards the end, it might've been the last or second to last event. I had an instructor that had ridden with me when I started, and he got in and he was like, wow, your slalom's really good. And I was like, yes, Like, who cares if I was middle of the pack? Who cares if I never beat Sasha? Like, I had improved on the slalom. So I felt really good about that. Again, for what's next this year, I don't know. I have to drive and just even see if anything is salvageable. Right? And then pick the one thing to work on. But I think it's a really great way to work, because you can't just say I'm gonna be better or I'm gonna be faster. It is really best to pick that one thing.
So on the slaloms, just for the autocross newbie, are they always spaced the same, or do they have different spacings on the slaloms, like at different courses?
The slalom as a whole could be longer or shorter, and even from first to second cone, second to third cone could be different distances, and they aren't always in a straight line either. They can sometimes be slightly offset.
To make it more slalomy?
To make it more slalomy, yes, exactly. Yes. And sometimes it's you have to go this direction on this one first, and other times it's a you pick situation. So yeah, and for me, it wasn't any of those things. None of those things mattered. A lot of times for newbies, you tend to turn after the cone, and you need to start turning, sooner than that, right? Yep. All of autocross is looking ahead, and it's very easy to be looking out your driver's side window down. And if you're doing that, you're in the wrong place and you're taking things way too late. And that's what I was doing. So I was trying to improve that.
Cool. All right. Well, the lottery is very large, and I'm sorry, but we're going to have to win it. We just need to actually buy a ticket, so that would help. But once we do, we wanted to make sure that all our podcast guests come out to our now private island that has a racetrack, and it's a asphalt track, a dirt track, and also some autocross events. So with that, we're inviting you to come to our island, the Garage Heroes in Training Practice Island, and we want to make sure that we have the proper cars for you guys. So what 5 cars would you guys like to have waiting for you, ready to go?
Lotus Elise.
Lotus Elise. Okay, we got a Lotus Elise. Anyone else have some cars? We got 5 cars between you.
Well, I'm going to take my M2 for sure.
Your M2? Yeah. All right. Very well.
I've always wanted to try autocrossing like an Austin Mini, like the older.
Ooh, the old original Mini.
Original Mini.
That would be awesome.
Let's go for something new too. Let's go with like a C8 Corvette.
Oh, Kathy, they're taking all your cars. What are you going to do, Kathy?
That's good. I've said this before. I'm like, I jokingly say I'm car dyslexic. I don't know I can't tell one car from another. So that's fine. They can pick. I'll drive whatever. 4
wheels is good, right?
So we've got a Corvette. I would say maybe, do we want to do like, what do you think, Audra? Like super high horsepower or
like a big muscle car?
Yeah, Porsche.
Yeah.
TT3 RS?
Yes.
TT3 RS 4.0. All right, very nice. All right, well, we'll work on that for you. We'll let you know.
So, guys, what is the one car that you would really like to bring to autocross, like if you had an opportunity to drive it out? Something that's very attainable.
Yeah, we have a Alfa Romeo 4C that shows up, and I've never been able to drive one of those. I've hopped in a lot of cars. I think I'd like to take that.
Ooh.
I'm actually going to stick with my Lotus Elise because I actually, while I was researching, the Miata, I've discovered that they are a little more attainable than I thought they were. So I'm sticking with that.
I don't know. I'm still too much of a newbie, and I'm too afraid. And like I fishtailed in Jess's Miata, so I don't know if I need anything beyond my car for right now. I just want to be better in my car.
That's a good answer.
It's not about the car. It's about getting better. All right. Here's another question. If you could only drive or race cars from one decade in the past, what decade would you choose?
We can't have one from each decade?
Sure. You can have anything you want.
I might be willing to say, I might go 60s.
60s.
Yeah. I like the 60s. I think that would be fun.
Too.
I'm digging that too.
I want to stay with the 2010s and have some power and handling.
You just want air conditioning.
So, if you can daily drive or race cars from one decade in the past.
I just asked that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's on it. My bad.
I took it.
This listening thing is hard.
Stole it. Where would your ultimate road trip be to and from? And in what car?
I would take some type of convertible and go cross country.
So that's
Nice.
a tough one. I've actually gone cross country. We went across the top, down the west, across the bottom, and up the right. And that was great. And it was not a race car. It was a Jeep Cherokee.
Doesn't have to be US. You can go anywhere.
Oh, I can go anywhere. Wow, let's see. I don't know.
It's like a whole world.
I'll take Audra's Alfa Romeo in Italy. How about that?
There you go.
It's not a bad place.
Yeah, I still prefer a little underpowered manual transmission cars versus like a beefier car. So I would definitely take, back roads through Europe in a little sports car.
That'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Sound like fun.
It does.
All right. Next question is favorite car movie or car from a movie?
We did an episode on car movies, and at the end, I realized that I actually hate car movies.
Yes, I know.
That's why we're all laughing.
That's why I put this one in just for you.
So you don't
pick
have
one,
one?
Audra. Yeah, you have to pick one that you can tolerate. How about that?
Well, Ford versus Ferrari was the only one that I actually came back after that episode and said that was okay, even though I hate Christian Bale. It was all right.
That was kind of like pulling teeth at a dentist office to get Audra to complete. What do you think, Jess? You got one?
What did we? I was trying to think. What did we talked about more like car chase scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I think I still like the movie. I still like Baby Driver. I like all the
The
driving
chase
in that.
scene, not the movie, though, right? You didn't like the movie, no?
That's actually correct. I didn't like the rest of the movie, but
But that
Just like
first
the
five
opening scene.
that first 5 minutes was awesome, though.
I know. Born Identity.
Oh, okay.
Gotta go
Get
with
that mini going.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Kathy?
my favorite car movie may be a tie between Talladega Nights and Days of Thunder. Only Days of Thunder because of the number of times in my life I have just randomly said Rubbin's Racing. So
I'm telling you, I watched that movie recently, and it's just as fun to watch. It still holds up. I agree.
I agree. Yep. It's a
Did
good
you
movie.
I just got to make sure I heard this right. You said Talladega Nights,
yes.
and you said
Talladega-
Rubbin's Racing.
from Days of Thunder.
Okay. All right. I was just making sure you weren't confused on which movie it was. All right. Very well.
No, I said both of them. I can't
Okay.
pick between the
Okay.
two.
Well, I mean, they're so close to each other. It's okay. So you guys, from listening to your podcasts, I'm not sure if you're better during the autocross or after the autocross as far as your competency and skills. So one of the questions that I'm trying to do is, as we go around the country and we go to different racetracks and different courses, and what restaurant would be your favorite for nearby to the racing event attending? Could be atmosphere, could be food, could be liquid, whatever.
Well, that's easy. We go to the same place every time. We go to this place. It's called Billiards Cafe. They have food, they have liquor, and they always have a spot for us.
Yes, that's the best part. They know us.
Yeah.
And even one time we came in and the bar had these little plaques on the table that said for racers only.
Love it. And they came out once. They came out to an event. I remember I took the owner for a ride.
That's awesome.
Yeah, poor Calvin. He thought that having a big breakfast before he came out was a good idea.
It was probably the worst thing he could have done in high
Was it like a hot August day too?
Sure was.
They treat us well. We try to give them business. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a nice partnership.
The best part might be the running water in the bathroom though after.
Oh my God.
The post autocross hand wash.
Mhm.
TM.
Yeah. Every time you go in, you just kind of have this switch face, like,
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, how much of racing is learned versus how much is natural skill?
For me, it was all learned.
All
I
learned.
don't think I
agree.
had any skill when I started this. That was terrible.
I
Yeah.
certainly hope it's all learned and not natural skill.
For me, it was all learned. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, I kind of have it like a little theory on that. Yes, I think it's learned. And I think that the natural skill part would actually come from being that one kid, like when you're growing up, that kind of rode the bike just a little bit too hard, kind of took a bunch of bumps a little bit too hard. So you're more kind of prone to sit in a seat and have like more courage to try more. So you might pick things up more. I think that
Skateboard.
I agree with that. I think we all have to have a little natural daredevil in us to want to.
Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes to, it might have a more tendency to pick things up quicker. And that's every time I read this question, I keep wanting to think that's what my feeling is on that one.
So, being on a podcast with 5 lovely ladies, I have a magical capability, and I'm going to give it to you guys as a gift. I would like to be able to give you the gift of hearing a song for the first time ever again. What song would you want to hear for the first time ever? I'm trying to figure out who's got the least puzzled look. Audra, you look like you got this locked in.
No, not even.
Okay, very well.
First time ever.
Like you could hear the song for the first time.
Can I answer this on behalf of somebody else? Because
Sure.
I have a 13-year-old daughter, and me and my husband, we like to drive and we like to listen to music. That's like a big part of our lives, just the band and everything. And I remember when I was a kid and I heard my first Led Zeppelin song and I just loved it. And then I met my husband. He was already a massive Led Zeppelin fan. And then my daughter just turned into one. So with me, my song would be Led Zeppelin, No Quarter.
Ooh,
I just
okay.
love that. That's the song that I listen to when I'm like 10 minutes from home and the car could like drive itself home at that point at night.
Mhm.
Her song was, she just heard the song a couple of years ago. She heard Stairway to Heaven, which we
okay.
all know is like,
Mhm.
kind of get tired of it. But then you try to, like, I was thinking about it from her and she was hearing it for the first time.
Mhm.
It's like, this is amazing. So it was kind of magical. Like I did get to hear it for the first time through her, which was kind of cool.
That is fun. Audrey, you still look as puzzled as before. She's got nothing.
She's not a music girl. She's just
I mean, like I'm
not
a
a
huge,
thing.
I'm a huge
I wanna
music
say
person, but like I can't. A lot of times, one, it's too much to pick through, but also I don't always like songs the first time I hear them. So like,
That's
you
true.
know what I mean?
Yep.
It would make me dislike songs probably that I like.
Admit it. It's Gangnam Style. I see it. I see it in your eyes.
Yeah, probably not.
No. All right. Audrey, you punting on this one? How about movie? If we could do a movie, what would the movie be that you could see for the first time?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Nice.
Yeah, that's what I would have to say too.
2 Star Wars. Very well. You guys fit right into this podcast.
There you go.
Kathy, Talladega Nights. Days of Thunder.
You know what? You're not the only person to have said that. Now I want to go watch Talladega Nights again.
I will stick with the theme of the ladies, but I'll change it up a little bit, and I'll say Empire Strikes Back, since there was quite the stunning
Surprise.
revelation.
Don't spoil it for
Why
anybody.
not?
It's only 30 years ago. No
Right.
big deal. Okay, very well.
All right, ladies. So, what are you guys going to be working on for your upcoming race season? How does everything look?
Cars are ready.
I might not fix the front end still.
You could just
New
change the
duct
color of the
tape
tape.
remains.
New pink tape.
I'll put new tape on. Exactly. It'll look fresh.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like
You
a
guys
plan.
have your schedule set up?
Not quite. Yeah, we're waiting on dates. We should have those soon.
Mhm.
So there's, quite a bit of work to do once we have that, with getting everything set on Motorsport Reg and updating websites and forms and getting annual inspection stickers. So there's probably more to do for the club than for myself personally. Just take the cover off of Blue, make sure he still starts, and it's some basic maintenance.
I'll be waiting on dates, hopefully on a vaccine. And also, because it's my daily driver, I'll hope the snow ends, and so I can put on my summer tires and take off my winter tires. And
yeah, that is helpful.
Again, just try to remember how to autocross again.
I know.
We have faith. It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, I hope so.
Sort of. Very cool.
Well, I guess that's all of our Fast and Furious questions. So how would one follow you or get in contact with you or
Subscribe to the podcast.
And your team.
Yeah.
Kathy.
Yeah, so our podcast again is the Shifting Points Podcast, and the website is shiftingpointspodcast.com, and we're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram.
All the things.
Yeah, so if you look for Shifting Points, you should find us there, and you can listen to us on all the places. So again, as Shifting Points Podcast.
Fantastic. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Made my trip to Vermont very much helpful. How did you come up with the name?
It was a lengthy and difficult process, as I recall.
A lot of alcohol.
Probably involved alcohol.
It involved much going back and forth on email threads. Yeah, we had a lot of emails going back and forth in those early days, trying to make decisions about like logos and names. And yeah, and I don't even remember how. I think it was just one of those ones.
We had some variation. Oh, we did. We had a Google sheet with just words, driving related words. And some of them went together well in combinations and some of them did not. But yeah, lots of emails, lots of text chains, lots of politely going back and forth, trying not to go, no, that's a idea. Oh, I did it again. Sorry.
Diplomatic responses. But then I think ultimately we decided Shifting Points worked just because, that meant that we could have different views that went back and forth. And it's just the play on the shifting point of a car,
It's a great name.
Thanks.
It is.
I'm actually on your website right now.
That's right. Well, thank you, ladies. Appreciate your time. Hope you had a good time and tolerated some of our stupidity questions. We like it. And Vicky always says my questions are random, which is why I do them. So appreciate your time and can't wait for your next episode. Actually, I've got one episode ready that I have not listened to today's yet, so we'll get there.
Nice.
Very excited.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to getting caught up with all 100 and how many of your episodes? I'm still working through them.
You really should skip a lot. Like do number 68 and then just skip right to the new ones.
Is that the one?
That's the one that you talk about every single time.
Guys, you have to go listen to episode 68.
Okay.
It'll be worth the time.
Nice.
And then you said you guys are going, well, I should save this for when you come on our podcast, but you said you're going to go sort of back, right? And restart with the newer.
We are.
Yeah, we're going to do a 101 series. So you want a race car?
Awesome. I'm definitely going to look forward to that.
It should be fun. And don't think this was our only attempt to talk you into coming to a race. Just in case you were curious, August 6th, let me see, 6th, 7th, and 8th, we'll be in Thompson, Connecticut. And then we will be in New Hampshire right before Halloween on October 22nd through 24th. So maybe we'll talk you into it. At least come by and visit, if not drive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Oh.
Well, until we hear you again on the podcast airwaves, I don't know if there's airwaves with a podcast, but I'm saying it anyway. Thank you again. You guys were great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dominating with Dawson.
So, Ben, we've got a lot of people on our team. Some of them, I would say, personality-wise, they tend to overdrive the car, push it, take the aggressive play, what have you. And some of them tend to underdrive the car, meaning they'll gradually keep creeping up a little bit, keep progressing. Is there any advantage or disadvantage that you can see from either of these approaches? And then there's some other stuff I'd like to know. But
I guess we have to kind of come to a common understanding of what overdriving and underdriving mean. What are you thinking of when you say those sort of things?
So it would be somebody who maybe is a little more mechanically unsympathetic to the car, maybe a little more gas than brake, maybe a little more let me try and hammer this thing in here and see if I can get it to roll through, versus somebody who's gonna, well, this time I went through in third gear and I'm in 62 miles an hour and I hit the apex perfectly. So next time I'll come through and I'm going to hit the apex and see if I can get through there at 63 miles an hour. And then the next
Right.
stop,
So you're talking about this,
64.
somebody might be on the team who isn't likely to take care of the car and is likely to take risk that maybe they shouldn't take in traffic. So
maybe it's more the risk averse versus the risk tolerant.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about specifically overdriving a car, you mean like overheating the engine or overrunning the tires or overdriving the traction and ending up off the course. So those are pretty easy ones to say, hey, don't do that. If you're overheating the engine, drive around the track in a higher gear or with fewer RPM or whatever you can do to reduce the heat of the engine. You know what I mean? There's some very basic answers to some very basic overdriving. But when it gets to, this person is just consistently trying too hard and putting our error rate at an unacceptable level, or causing too much damage. How do you stop somebody who's just making bad choices? I don't know. Like what?
Well, I think that the question wasn't really the errors will show themselves. It's how does the person improve if their tendency is to go too fast or go too hard, versus how do we help somebody improve whose tendency is a little more conservative, a little more let me creep up on this.
Right.
Like,
That's the tough one. I mean I've definitely been there on teams before, and I am usually the person who needs to be tuned down a little bit.
Well, that is an example of a person I was thinking about when I wrote this question. So
yeah, I mean, you have to be calibrated up or calibrated down, I think, unless you just happen to be the perfect racer for what you're trying to do, which is rare or never in my experience. But
not on this podcast, at least.
Right. It's tough. I definitely come from the spectrum of having to be, somebody's got to turn the wick down on me usually, but I've also been there with teammates who I'm dying to turn the wick up on. And, from the other end of the spectrum, instead of how do you stop this errant overdriver, to how do you speed up this one person who doesn't seem to understand getting any faster. That's a tough one. I mean, if you're trying to get somebody to come out of the timid end of the spectrum, out of the comfortable timid end of the spectrum, to get faster and push the car a little bit harder on track and take more risks in traffic, that's tough. I mean, you have to be with them on the radio. You got to maybe get that person in the car with the fast person at DEs to help them understand what the car can do, in their hands or anybody's hands. That's a tough one. I think it's harder to get somebody up to speed than it is to go, hey, buddy, no more of that stuff where you try to go 3 wide down the straightaway. We're not doing that anymore. We all have to drive this car. Hey, buddy, no more shifting at 69. We're all shifting this car at 63, and nobody gets a break on that. Don't make me put a rev load. It's so much easier to tell somebody, bring it down, than it is to hoist somebody up to where they're not comfortable being. But that's a challenge, and it's something that we all face in amateur endurance racing or track driving or whatever. Yeah,
for sure. So, Miss Jen, you are the underdriver.
The underdriver?
Just by personality, Jen.
I am definitely the underdriver.
Jen wants to get there, know she's there, get comfortable there, and then move up just a little bit more. So typically, I have seen that and know your personality well enough to know that is your perspective on things and the way you naturally deal with it. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I help you go fast without you feeling like you're getting pushed to go fast? So if we were to think about what would Jen do for Jen, being a stereotypical underdriver, what do you think would be the way to make you feel comfortable pushing a little bit?
I don't think there's anything that you can do to make me feel comfortable. I think I just need seat time, and I think I need to just be comfortable and apply everything that I'm learning.
But is it the learning that helps you, or the seat time, or do you need
I think
both?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. It's both. Yeah, it's both.
I'm just trying to make sure we're doing what you need, because
yes, when I said nothing that you, everything, like all of the HPDs we're doing, like the encouragement that you're giving, all of those things are exactly what I need. Like what I wouldn't respond to would be, oh, just stay in the car a little bit longer if I'm out there. Do you know what I mean? Or you could do it just, So like what you're doing now is exactly what I need, because I feel like I have gotten faster, but on my own terms.
You have.
And and I think that's kind of where I need to be, because I if I'm pushed too hard, like I just kind of get too anxious, and then I can't really focus on anything. Do you know what I mean? So, but I know that about me.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not that you're wrong. It's just, you have to, like, I guess I'm approaching this from, I'm trying to be a pseudo instructor and help guide and coach our team. And I don't ever want to push somebody to be uncomfortable, or definitely don't want to push somebody to be unsafe. But I also, that's not my natural tendency. So I'm trying to figure out, it's like, how do you deal with, not the opposite, but a different personality profile? Like Ben, you've taught a lot of people when you've done your HPD instruction.
Yep.
I'm sure you've had people who were not timid, but I can't really think of a good word because it's getting late. But
I have. Yeah, I've had people who were reticent to just get on the loud pedal and have needed some cheerleading. And for the most part, even with people who think they're pretty great quick track drivers, I still am in the car usually saying, "All right, let's get on the gas. Let's break a little bit later." So even folks who think they're pretty good at it, still an instructor will still have to kind of push them pretty hard. So there's always going to be somebody in the car. If you get some good in-car instruction, somebody's always in there. We're like, let's go, get on the gas. There's always somebody who's going to kind of push you a little bit harder, but it's our job as in-car instructors to understand what you're comfortable with and what you respond to. So probably wouldn't be in there screaming at Jen or anything like that, but we would like to try to encourage you.
Yeah, no, and that's even a good example was that. Oh,
Go ahead, Ben. Go do what you got to do.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go do it.
All right, see ya.
We got this.
Yeah, you go do.
All right. So Vicky, you're kind of in the middle. You're not, oh my God, I can't wait to put this pedal down to the metal and put 100% of my gas pedal down and make as much noise as I can and go running around the track with my left hand out the window throwing shakas as I'm skidding down the road. But you're also
Chakras. Yeah.
But you're also
going all Xena.
Yeah.
Going all Xena on the racetrack.
That's right.
Yeah, girl.
But you're also not, let me just creep up on this ever so slowly. You're probably a little more towards that side than the aggressive side, but what helps you as a driver to improve? What is it? Seat time? Is it instruction? Is it what's best for your personality to help you progress?
I'm in the phase of when I'm trying to knit it together. So at this point right now, it's probably seat time. So until I can get back in.
So we should talk about the upcoming HPDE at NJMP.
I have absorbed a lot of information.
And you need to apply it.
And I need to implement it now.
Okay.
In a car that doesn't break down on the track.
That's important. That's very important.
Which team are you going to be
Yes.
racing with next then? Because it's not going to be ours.
I think this year was really good in the sense that it was a little bit more low key and
Less races,
it
more HPD.
Yeah.
less races, more training, and
Yeah.
like it was. Yeah, I mean, it was. I really, really found it beneficial.
The training is invaluable if you want to have fun with the racing. I think if you want to really enjoy the racing, a bunch of the training makes it so much more fun. That's my opinion and my own lived experience.
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't intentional, doing so many HPDs, but with the COVID thing, I really kind of feel like it worked.
We
Like,
had so much fun together.
yeah, I mean, it was.
This
it
was the first
really
season
good.
when we actually
We could have fun again.
spent so much time together in one trailer and traveled together. We
Yeah.
had we actually got tighter as a family.
What goes on in the
we
trailer
had a
stays in the trailer.
We had a
Okay.
blast.
That's great.
Matter
That's-
with you? I seriously question you, honey.
I'm on a streak
That's-
here,
That's what it's all about. It's all about having fun and getting together, and everything else kind of rides second to that for me.
Enjoying the road trips too, together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that we got a lot out of it this time around, this year.
Yeah.
I'll be very excited when we start putting it all together.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a lot of fun to compete.
Thank you, Northeast NASA.
Thank you.
Great Lakes
Tell you.
NASA. Yes, Great Lakes NASA.
Yep.
Thank
you guys,
you.
since you're sampling,
Thank you
since
for-
you're sampling all these NASA regions, the one I'm used to is Mid Atlantic, and I would definitely recommend them too. You should come down and check out the Mid Atlantic folks too. They're pretty fun at VIR.
Okay. We need to get to VIR.
VIR again, right?
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks, Ben.
I have a feeling I am the only Y chromosome for the evening. This is going to be fun.
It's all right. We'll pick on you like always.
Shocking look on my face. Anyway, alrighty. Let's make sure we're recording. We're recording. Life is good. All right. So could you share a few pictures of you, your cars, your team, your logo, whatever, and we'll use it to.
Oh, we have that good one with our shirts on, Kathy.
We do. Like we have the
Well, I mean, if you want to share the one without your shirts on, that's fine too. I mean, I won't have to edit the podcast.
What she said.
That'll get some listeners.
We should put that in the front of the episode.
Well, I won't have to edit out.
All of a sudden, overnight,
anything.
they went from.
They're a 1 million subscriber podcast. My goodness. How come they have so many more listeners than we do?
I have like tons of pictures on my phone of the three of us. And they're Shifting Point podcast shirts, which is what Audra made.
See, you guys would get more pictures. I mean, more listeners without shirts, and people would pay to listen to our podcast for me to have my shirt on. So that's the difference.
God. Okay. That was
Okay.
that. Thank you, Audra. That made my night.
There you go.